Hello, friends. Thank you all for coming out on Sunday night on this beautiful day. So Joe and I are helping, I'll just say Joe and I are helping help with this event, but it is organized and run by Bruce over here, who will be reading from his memoir. So very excited about that. And then, like Joe mentioned, we'll take a little bit of a break and then we'll have an open mic after Bruce does his reading. But yeah, if you missed the poster, this is all about healing through writing and also healing through sharing, because I think both are very important in the healing process, and that's what a lot of Bruce's memoir touches on as well. So yeah, like I said, Bruce is going to read from his memoir, and then we'll open it up to open mic. So yeah, share your poems, your songs, memoir, anything that has helped you heal or that you wrote about maybe a difficult experience or something in that vein. So yeah, I'm going to introduce Bruce, and then he's going to come on up. So Bruce Wheelton is a poet, creative nonfiction writer, a memoirist, and lifelong learner who has dedicated himself to the craft of writing and the art of healing. Though he began his academic journey at Georgia Tech studying engineering, Bruce's true passion emerged in psychology, neuroscience, and helping others make meaningful change. He went on to earn a master's in social work, working for many years as a therapist and mental health advocate. Writing has always been a central part of Bruce's journey, just not just as self-expression, but as a means of survival and growth. He's devoted years to studying writing, both through formal education and a personal commitment to continuous improvement. Bruce's latest memoir, which there are copies for sale here, 3 Times a Victim, Living Under the Shadow of Toxic Shame, is an exploration of injustice, trauma, and the search for hope. His story does not shy away from difficult truths, but ultimately points toward resilience, recovery, and the power of connection. So tonight, as you hear from Bruce, I invite you all to listen with empathy. I've gotten to know Bruce through his writing and through this community for a little while now. Bruce is basically, so Joe and I host another open mic, as some of you know, and Bruce has been there basically since the beginning. So I've known him for a little while, and I always admire his vulnerability, his willingness to put himself out there and talk about difficult things, and also his focus on his own healing and growth, but also the healing and growth of others. So I always appreciate that about Bruce. So if you are moved by Bruce's story, you can learn more and support him by buying his book. He has some links to his Linktree, his website, so you can learn more about all of that. And yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it on over to Bruce.
All right, thank you everyone for coming. It really means a lot to me to be able to share this story. And I want to thank Lanzas for hosting this. So, why don't I just get started? I'm going to jump right into talking about things. For many years, I didn't think I'd ever speak publicly about what happened. It wasn't just fear that no one would believe me. It was the terror that anyone, even one person, might not. I'd always seen how quickly the truth about who I could be rewritten, how easily characters could be erased. The life I had built, defined by compassion, by helping others, suddenly didn't matter. That's what made it so surreal. I felt like my voice, my identity, my entire story had been stolen and replaced by someone else's invention. I'm not a celebrity. I spent years learning, taking online courses on writing and self-expression. I hired an editor for the book because I believe the story deserved to be told well. It is in a narrative manner that tries to evoke an emotional response as you read it. But what I'll be covering now won't really immerse you. There'll be some telling and not showing, which is a mantra for writers. Yeah, and as I have the book on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have a Kindle Unlimited account, you can read it for free. Okay. jumping into the beginning. So it opens up, now there are a couple trigger warnings. This is kind of violent. And there's going to be a short part where I talk about, I just mentioned the word rape. Okay. Introduction. Let's jump right into the story. The assault was not the worst part. What came next, that's what I never saw coming. The sun had already begun to set when I heard a voice outside my door. I'd been expecting a new friend. I had my door open a bit. "Where's Bruce?" Without hesitation, I answered, "I'm Bruce." Instantly realizing that this was not the person I was expecting. This was a white woman. The person I was expecting, my friend, was black, as was my girlfriend, Shonda. She might not have known I had switched apartments in the building. Without hesitation, I answered, "I'm Bruce," instantly realizing that this was not the person I was expecting. This was a white person that's done it. The friend I was awaiting, I just said that. Okay, sorry about that. She walked straight past me, coming down the stairs into my apartment. I turned and followed her inside, confused. Then, without warning, she slammed the door behind us, locked it, and we were alone. Then she attacked. Blood poured from my face. My shirt, shorts, socks, and even sneakers were soaked. My hand, covered in blood, left a smeared thumbprint on the door frame as I steadied myself, pulling her out, locking the door. I called 911. The police were on the way. When they offered to call paramedics to stop the bleeding, I asked, "Shouldn't you take photographs first?" The police came. They questioned me about how I had been victimized. They questioned the witnesses, and they left. An hour later, more officers arrived. A female officer stood in my doorway, staring at me. Then I heard it. "A woman has been sexually assaulted out here." I had called for help, but now I was the accused. The victim was now the perpetrator in their eyes. I never imagined anything like this, and the nightmare was just beginning. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself up to that point. The book actually starts with me covering memories from age 3 or 4 or 5 years old, but I'm going to move a little bit ahead. I was raised in a home where fear was mistaken for respect. I had been assaulted by both my parents, mostly by my mother. This wasn't corporal punishment. It was unpredictable. It was emotional deprivation, volatility. At some point I realized something essential. I might have feared my mother, but I didn't respect her. And I didn't want anyone to feel toward me what I felt toward her. I made a vow in the quiet of my childhood bedroom. I will never be like them. I will never lose my temper. I will never let anyone feel unsafe because of me. I would spend my whole life keeping that promise. Later, I made another vow. No one will ever fear me. In a home where fear was a weapon, I rejected it. Transition. The undergraduate years and career shift. In undergraduate school at Georgia Tech, I was overcoming social anxiety and longing for a normal life, a family of my own someday. But I had no idea what love was until I met Felta and then Lynn. Emotional deprivation was all I knew. With help from a counselor, a psychologist, I discovered that engineering was a poor fit. I scored highest for social and creative careers. That's when I chose psychiatric social work. Gentle nature. Years later, that vow I'd made as an early teenager wasn't just a thought. It It lived in my body. My instinct was always to protect, never to harm. The notion that I could inflict pain was unthinkable, tragically at odds with accusations that would come later. The same instinctively gentle hands held Kelta, so fragile due to anorexia. I remember the moment we posed for a photo and Kelta began to fall. In a fraction of a second, before my mind could plan, my body moved to catch her without causing harm to her fragile body. The notion of me as someone who could inflict pain was almost laughable if it weren't so tragically real later on in the accusation. Memories of living with Lynn came flooding back. Lynn would often follow me, insisting, "I'm not done talking," as she entered the garage. My reaction was always the same. I was punching a punching bag and studying gestalt therapy, which encouraged that kind of thing. And immediately when I saw her, halting my punches, driven by an instinct that occurred faster than conscious thought, terrified of even the slightest chance of hurting her. Unimaginable, of course. I loved her and didn't want to harm her, but the instinct to stop was more profound than love. It was an innate aversion to violence. The next part is the part that deals a little bit with rape, so it won't be too triggered, just kind of like overview. My first job after earning my MSW was at an inpatient psychiatric hospital, supervising an intern named Mary. I treated people with all kinds of struggles, but one of the first rape survivors I helped process trauma was Karen. She wouldn't be the last woman who would describe being raped. It was always disturbing, but I focused on what the client/patient needed. Karen had seen the other therapists on the unit, a woman, but perhaps the way Mary had said, "Bruce can help," gave her hope. She had appeared lifeless, like a zombie, when I saw her in group and elsewhere. Mary offered to stay, but Karen said, "No, I don't want you to see." I began with, "I can help. We can go back to when it happened." She was scared and asked, "Will you come with me?" I said, "My voice will go with you," I told her. I helped her push the images away, asked her to project them onto a movie screen outside of herself. I walked her back toward the present, toward survival. Along the way, though, I reassured her, "You are safe now. You are safe now," as we processed the memory. It took time, but then her eyes opened, and a smile, unexpected and luminous, crossed her face. "Thank you," she said. She was alive now. Interrogating the victim. Fast forward to the assault that I mentioned in the introduction. I arrived at the police station, expecting to explain the mistake that they made, expecting them to care about the truth. Fine, I thought finally. I not only described what happened, with my apartment room door open, but I reenacted this. The door to the room was not locked, so I could reenact precisely what happened. One of them said, "That is not what happened." I explained again, and gave the same response. I was so frustrated that I wanted to scream, "Why are you saying that? You were not there." This was bizarre, beyond bizarre. I was still wearing the bloody clothing from earlier, from the assault. Did they think I kept blood-stained clothes around for moments when I wanted to claim to be a victim? Segment 6, breaking the silence, rediscovering myself. For years, I lived in fear of what people might believe. After the false accusation and conviction, I chose to be with someone toxic because I believed no one ever would care about me. Her name was Amanda. She created a crisis that reopened everything I had tried to survive. One night in 2009, 2 years after the case ended, 3 years, the police showed up at my door at 3 a.m. They seized my computer equipment, looking for a crime that didn't exist. A corporal police officer told my lawyer, "How could you help someone like that?" Years of helping others, years as a therapist, a gentle person, now reduced to one lie. 10 years later, believing that everything that once brought joy and meaning into my life was walled off forever, and that nothing could be done, I became suicidal. I was hospitalized before I carried out my plan. I was saved. And one night, sitting in the psychiatric unit with other patients, we watched Law and Order SVU. The episode featured a teacher, falsely accused. It destroyed his life and career and passions. I took a chance to announce, that happened to me. I was falsely accused. They knew I had been a therapist, and I heard, "I'm so sorry that happened." That was what I had needed to hear. Yet even after that moment, I still thought of myself as a misfit, an outcast, invisible, an outsider. But later, during a group therapy session, another patient looked at me and said, "You're not invisible. You got me here to this group. You're like the social butterfly of this place." Others chimed in. They spoke of my presence, my kindness, my ability to encourage. And I realized they saw something I didn't even recognize in myself. Someone who was meant to help others. Transformation through writing. I had already published other memoirs, and people told me I had a talent. When I look back at those early books now, I'm astonished by how much better my writing is today. For me, it's also about healing and escaping the grip of toxic shame, which thrives in silence. I did research, and there is a legal remedy. It could cost money, but I'm still